I think mine's better. Hey, it's the preacher, and yes, I've already admitted I have a fermentation problem. This here is 2 pounds of jalapenos and garlic that I vacuum sealed it's a little over 2 weeks ago, and I'm still letting them ferment. So there's 2 pounds. There's 2 pounds. I did these 3 days ago. This is 3 pounds with the seeds in them that were vacuum sealed, and they're starting to ferment. And so I'm really liking, so far, I'm really liking the vacuum sealed bags of just peppers and salt with no brine. But if you followed the channel, I made some Tibetan chili sauce last week where I fermented in these half-gallon mason jars. I have in this jar, this is red jalapenos, and this is a salt brine that is about 2.5 to 3% salt. And you can get online and look the ratios up and how to do that. But I've had this fermenting for, I didn't write the date down, I want to say about 6 weeks. I know it's been well over a month. So anyways, what I want to try to make out of this is sriracha. Sriracha's base is garlic and red jalapeno peppers. So I've had this fermenting in this salt brine for 6 weeks. I'm going to do something with it today. Man, that smells really good. So here's what we're going to do. Sriracha is more like a ketchup in its consistency. Most of the hot sauces I make are more like a Tabasco style sauce where they're thin and watery. And so I've made a number of hot sauces that way. I've got videos on them. You can go back and watch those. So the first thing I'm going to do is drain off this saltwater brine off of the jalapenos. Then we'll have just the peppers and just the garlic, and we'll blend them and then add some seasoning, and we'll show you what it tastes like. So let's get started. Okay, so this is just garlic and peppers. We have strained the brining liquid off. I got most of the seeds out of these peppers, but not all of the seeds. So remember, the seed and membrane is where a lot of your heat comes from. I'm going to let this go till it gets real smooth. This is not quite big enough to hold it all. So here's what I ended up with. A very thick, pretty much the consistency right now of sriracha. It smells like sriracha. Okay, so it took me a couple of different containers. I had to run two batches through here. I put them all in here so that I can add the same amount of seasoning to the whole thing. So here's what we're dealing with. We need to add some vinegar because, well, sriracha has vinegar in it. And not a lot of vinegar. And now we need to add sweetness. And if you watch recipes online, a lot of people add white sugar or brown sugar. I don't want this to taste exactly like sriracha. I can buy sriracha for $2.50 in the store. I want it to taste like sriracha that I made. In other words, I want it to be different in a good way, something that I like. So what I'm going to add instead of white sugar or brown sugar is molasses. Molasses will give me a sweetness, but also with a real rich, complex flavor. So I'm going to put, I don't know, say half a teaspoon in there. Or half a tablespoon in there. Let's see. We can always add more, we can't take it out. Let's give this a pulse and see how we ended up. I'm using my nicest dinnerware for this, so let me reach in here and give it a little bit. The saltiness is there, the vinegar's there, the heat is there, but it's not sweet enough. We need about that much more molasses. Alright, I don't want any more molasses in it or it'll start tasting like molasses. And the idea is not to taste molasses, the idea is to taste a complex sweetness that you can't really explain. So I'm going to put a tablespoon of white sugar in here. That'll bump up the sweetness without adding any more of the molasses flavor. The last ingredient that I'm going to add is some xanthan gum, and this is just an emulsifier to keep it mixed up. I can already see it wanting to separate. I'm seeing the liquid come to the top, and I'm seeing the bigger pieces of the pepper go to the bottom. So I'm gonna put about maybe 1/4 teaspoon of xanthan gum in here. Now I'm going to give it its final mix. Okay, now we just need to run it through a sieve and a pretty fine mesh, and make sure that we got rid of any of the chunks that were in it. You know, sriracha is a smooth sauce. It's a thick sauce, but it's also a smooth sauce. So this is going to take a while. But I'm really pleased with the finished product coming out of the bottom. It's smooth. It has a great flavor. Mainly what I'm seeing in the sieve are pieces of the seeds that didn't get blended well. Okay, let me just use this clean spoon to kind of demonstrate the glossy finish of it. You see how smooth it is? How thick it is? Runny but not watery. Okay, let me put a little on a chip. I've just kind of been sticking a spoon in there, not eating it with anything. It's really hard to tell, but you can see there, kind of have to shake it off the spoon. That's about the way I want it. That is very good. It's not exactly like sriracha, and we don't want it to be exactly like sriracha. We want it to be like our sauce. There's a sweetness, but it's a different kind of sweet because we added the molasses. I wouldn't say I could taste molasses in it. It's just a much deeper sweetness than just the shallow white sugar sweetness that you would get if we just added white sugar. It's very good. It's very good. I'm pleased with that. So that was peppers that were fermented in a jar of salt brine. The next couple batches of sriracha I make will be peppers that were fermented just with salt, peppers, garlic in a bag. And it's much easier, much cleaner. So far it's been much more consistent. This probably yielded a quart of sauce, which I'm going to put in small jars. If you've never seen my process jarring this, watch the Tibetan chili and just skip to the end. You'll see how I jar it, seal it, put the caps on it. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'm well pleased with this sriracha. Looking forward to having some burritos, or some breakfast burritos more specifically, and loading them up with some homemade sriracha. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.